Are you thinking about getting into instructional design? Not sure where to start? Well, on today's video, I am going to give you the behind the scenes of how I got into instructional design and my tips so you can get started today. Hi friends, my name is Vanessa Alzate, the founder and CEO of Anchored Training, and on this channel, we help aspiring instructional designers and e-learning developers, just like you, get off of those sidelines and get into the L&D game. So, I started in the field back in 2009, January 5th, 2009. That is correct. I still remember the exact date, but let me just confirm real quick. There's a lot of scrolling. Yes, January 5th, 2009 was my start date at a CRM company here in New Jersey, and I was starting as a corporate trainer. But let's back up and talk a little bit about how I even thought that training was going to be something that I wanted to do. I went to college at Rutgers University and majored in communication and political science. Truly thought that I was going to be Elle Woods and be a lawyer. So I did end up in a sorority like Elle Woods, and actually, fun fact, the chapter house that they filmed in is a Delta Gamma chapter house, but I didn't end up as a lawyer. So I ended up realizing that law wasn't going to be my path, much to my father's dismay, and I needed to think about what are some things that I really liked doing while I was in college, and I had these 2 degrees, communication and political science. So as part of being in my sorority, I was also part of the National Panhellenic Conference Council, and it's a council that governs all the sororities on campus. And some of the things that I did was create educational programming for the community, as well as create training for recruitment counselors. And these are people that help potential new members go through formal recruitment. That's a lot of knowledge that you probably didn't need to know about the sorority recruitment method, but it's all important because that's all the things that I picked out as things that I really enjoyed doing in college. So that was the thing for me, is I sat down and I thought, okay, well, I'm not going to be a lawyer. What are some things that I really like to do? So recruitment, training came up and all of these different keywords. I graduated during the economic crash of 2008. One of the worst times to graduate college. It was really hard to find anything. So, full transparency, we're really going there today. In November of 2008, I had gastric bypass surgery. And before that, I was waitressing. I waitressed all throughout college. And when I had the surgery, my doctor told me I had 6 weeks before I could go back to work. And this was November 2008. I was already graduated for a while, and I was actually going off my parents' insurance come January 1st, 2009. And I was like, I need to find a job, and it needs to be something where I can get insurance. I do not want to go back to waitressing. And I was doing the search on all the different job boards, and on Craigslist of all places, I found a position as a corporate trainer. And they said that they would hire someone without experience and train them, which I thought was incredible, because that was so rare for that time. And really rare now too. Usually entry-level jobs, they want you to come with 3 years of experience. So they don't really add up. So I applied, they interviewed me, and I went in and did an in-person interview, and then did a mock training as my second interview, and they ended up hiring me. If you told me I was going to end up in software training, I'd be like, excuse me, that ain't my thing. But I have to say, thankfully, we were working with pharmaceutical clients, and I was training a lot of pharma sales reps, and they are such a fun crowd. They really made me enjoy training and getting in front of the classroom. And it was in that role that I was able to learn how to, create e-learning and documentation and training and all those things. And while I was there, I applied for my master's at Northeastern in human resources and organizational communication with a specialization in HR management. So I really have to say that, like, my first tip is first to figure out what you like. and what you like to do. For some people, they think they want to get into instructional design because it's kind of parallel, especially a lot of teachers that are moving into the field. It feels very parallel and similar, and it is to what you do day in and day out. But really, you have to think about what do you like to do, and that should be what your focus is as you're trying to get into a new career, whether it's instructional design or you realize that it might be something else. So that's tip number one. When I left that first job about 2 or 3 years in, my husband, my boyfriend at that time, told me, hey, you should reach out to your friend Lisa, who we used to use her training company when we had large trainings. She used to supply us with, she was our training vendor. She used to supply us with trainers and things like that. We grew close over the few years that I was there, and he said, you should reach out to her and see if she has any side work. I was like, you know what? That's a really good idea. I was hella nervous to email her, and I ended up saying, hey, if you have any e-learning work, at that time we were utilizing Captivate, be happy to help you. And it was like a really loud yes. And that is how I really started in the freelance industry. So tip number 2 is to reach out to your network. Reach out and tell everybody what you are doing. The reason for that is because you just don't know who needs help. In my mind, her company was huge. She had e-learning developers, and she wouldn't need someone like me. I was so nervous. Little did I know, and I just not that long ago found that out, she was the one that was doing the e-learning development. So she was crazy, going to in-person trainings and managing that. And then in the middle of the night was creating these e-learnings because she hadn't found someone to help her. Who knew that she needed someone, right? So if you don't put it out there, you're never going to know, who needs your help. So tip number 2, put it out there. Let people know that you're getting into the field, that you're looking for opportunities in, instructional design, training, e-learning, all of those things. Put all the keywords out there. You cannot just say instructional design. A lot of people don't know what instructional design is. So you really have to think about saying it in a few different ways, or really explaining it so that people understand whether or not your service is a need for them. So over the years, I've been able to work at a lot of different companies. So when I left that first CRM gig, I went to another company where I worked in onboarding and really creating that onboarding experience for the employees that came into work for that company. It was an interesting place to work too, because we used a lot of contractors and everyone was working on different teams. And because we had clients that were competitors of each other, we really couldn't there was challenges with cross pollination of materials and making sure nobody knew, who their client was. And, you'd have to create specific training or specific onboarding for one team and specific onboarding for another. And it was a brand new position. It was something that they really hadn't thought about, and really were trying to wrap their arms around it. So I was doing that while I was also in my master's program and freelancing. So when I say I really had no time for social media, I had no time for social media. And so that is definitely tip number 3. Get on social media. Especially if you're going to pick any of the social media platforms, get on LinkedIn. You need to take some time to learn from others, see what's, what people are talking about, what the trends are, and start to build your network and build your community around you. You cannot go through this alone. I was lucky because I knew people, colleagues and things like that. And because I worked with Lisa, I had a network of different training professionals that I was able to tap into. But a big downfall on me and something I should have done was, connect more on LinkedIn earlier in my career and do my due diligence there. And not so much for building out my network and getting, so many people to follow me. It's more just learning what other people are talking about and other experiences that other people are having. We all have different challenges. Every single organization is different. Instructional design is so custom and personal that there is no one size fits all. So being able to connect with others on social media, especially LinkedIn, there's just so much value and a wealth of information and knowledge. And also, you have a lot of information and knowledge as well. And really, social media should be more about what you're giving to other people as opposed to what they're giving you. So if someone posts a question and you face that challenge, why not give them that benefit of your experience and things like that? So if you want to get into instructional design, get on LinkedIn. So I'm going to tell you something. And I'm not always proud of this part of my history in instructional design. I ended up working as an office manager for a home remodeling company. And not that I'm not proud about working there, like I still love the company, I still love the people I worked with, just like wonderful memories of working there. What I'm not proud of is necessarily the reason. And the reason that I decided to leave the onboarding, my onboarding role and find something in more like HR management is I felt like that was where I was supposed to go. And that was, I don't know, like because I was a woman, that was my path. And training was just kind of too narrow and I should really be in HR management. I cannot believe to this day that I had those thoughts, but I had those thoughts. And it's like one of the shameful parts of history. So I ended up working at this home remodeling company. Like I said, I loved it. And I ended up realizing how much in love in instructional design and training I was. Like there was, so the way that this company worked is there was a headquarters in Philadelphia, and then there were satellite offices all up and down the East Coast, and I worked at one of them in New Jersey. But there was no consistency between the satellite offices, and there was really like not any training. Like I was trained by the Connecticut office manager that came down and trained me for a few days on the role. So seeing that as a need and having that innate like learning and development gene in me, I ended up putting together an office manager handbook and putting together, training materials and what I would do if, in this situation, in that situation. And it really helped to kind of streamline everything. It was so successful that I ended up, when they opened up an office in Detroit, they asked me to go and train that office manager. She came to New Jersey for like a week or so and trained with me in my office. And then I flew out to Detroit and I helped them get set up and up and running their first week. It was a really wonderful experience. And so my tip here is to find the opportunities to provide training, even if you're not necessarily in training. So let's say you are part of a call center and you think that instructional design and training is something that you want to now be part of or is like the next step in your career, but you're just not sure how to get into that department. Well, one really great way is to create opportunities where you are working now. So if you can put together some training documentations, or if you see a gap somewhere in your department, fill that gap, right? If training is the answer and the solution and the need, what should fill that gap? Fill it. Create materials, create recommended topic points for the next new hire that comes on board in your department. Things like that help to build your experience in instructional design and are things that you can then add to your resume or can be talking points in interviews. And for me, that answers two things for me. One, you're creating experience in instructional design, so you can tell me more about your experience in training and your thought behind why you developed it and things like that. But it also shows me that you're proactive, right? And you're someone that's going to see a need, and you're going to not just complain that there is a gap in your department or a gap within your company. You're going to try to come up with solutions in order to help fill that gap. So you're super solution oriented. And for me, that's so important when I'm hiring. I don't want just someone who can say, well, this is an issue. Okay, thank you for flagging that, but let's come together and come up with solutions. I love people that are solution oriented, and that's what that tells me. So whatever department you're in, whatever company you're in, find the areas that you can help in, and offer to help out. Offer to create a deck for new employees on X, Y, and Z. And really think about how you can create opportunity where you are today. It's not always about going out and finding opportunity. It can be you creating opportunity where you are today. So because of that love of training that I ended up finding, I actually ended up leaving that company and going to another consulting company where I worked with a government agency in Philadelphia. And this was my first experience of working from home. So I actually have been working from home since 2014. And I did it partly because I also wanted to have more flexibility in my day for my freelance business. So at this time, since 2011, while I was working at the home remodeling company, while I was working at the onboarding company, I was freelancing and I was doing e-learning. And then over time, I started taking on additional clients, just onesies and twosies here and there. But over time, the first company, my friend's company, really started to pick up speed with e-learning, and it became almost like a full-time gig. So I ended up working at my last company and going there because I had that flexibility where I was working from home. So I'd be able to take a meeting or two for my freelance gig if I needed to, and then, work a little bit later if I needed to on my full-time job. Here's the thing. At that time, I had no kids. I was just about to get married at that time, and obviously no kids. I had my dog. So I had a lot of free time to fill with work. That is just how I am. Like, it's Thanksgiving, the day after Thanksgiving, and I'm filming right now. But that's because I had my makeup done. So I said, let me make the most of my time. But I like working. I like creating, and it's something that I enjoy. And I don't see it necessarily as it's not something that bothers me. So working full-time and freelancing, essentially at one point, I ended up feeling full-time, was a lot at one time, but it also brought me a lot for me. It fulfilled me. But over the years, I was worked there for about 3 years. Over the years, ended up getting pregnant with Giselle. And then, a couple months later, pregnant with Gianna, and I just couldn't sustain it. When I was pregnant with Gianna, I was freelancing so many hours that would work, 9 to 5 at my consulting, my full-time job. And then I would start at 5:30 until 2 o'clock in the morning working on my freelance business. And it was just too much. So much so that my health during my second pregnancy just really deteriorated. And I didn't have a ton of time to spend with my daughter, my oldest, in her first year. So that was definitely hard. And it gave me that kick that I needed to realize that this is not sustainable for the long term, and I needed to make a decision. And so when I was just about to give birth, I went to my friend's company, and she loves my kids, and I, visited her with my oldest, and I looked at her and I said, "You think you have enough work for me to leave my full-time job?" And she said, "Yeah, just do it." And so I left there thinking, okay, I'm probably going to end up leaving. And then I didn't. I ended up going back to my full-time job, and I said, let me just see if I can do it. After my maternity leave, so starting in January again, I went back to my full-time job after giving birth to Gianna. I lasted 1 month. And a few weeks into January, I said, I cannot do this. And that is where Anchor to Training was born. And I said, I'm going to LLC, and we're going to just freelance. And at that time, I really thought that my freelance company was just going to be just me, and it was just, I was just LLCing to protect myself. I never thought of it becoming like an agency or anything like that. So my next tip for you is to be honest with yourself. What can you handle, the amount of time that you can honestly give to building this career, and do you want to build this career? A lot of people think that the freelance life, the gig economy is something that they want to be part of, and then they get in and they realize that it's actually a lot of work. So really understanding what it's like to be a freelancer is really important. And so for that, I have a video that I will link here about my tips and some things that you need to think about if you think that freelancing is for you. And I really had to stop and think about what that meant. And that meant no security. I was beholden to the clients that I had that could be ripped from me at any time, at any moment. Anything could happen. And I could just lose all my clients and lose my job. which is a lot to think about, about 3-4 months postpartum. So I ended up leaving that full-time job and just freelancing. And over time, I was reached out to by by a major fashion designer who had retail stores, and they wanted me to come in and help them with phase 2 of their of a project that they were working on to help them with training. So this was towards the end of the year, and the end of the year for me is always insane. And I had to say no. I was at capacity and there was no way I could bring on another client. And I did that and said, I will never do that again. If I'm going to say no, it's because I don't align, but saying no because I myself did not have capacity, like there are ways around that. So I ended up hiring my first subcontractor at that point. Literally only maybe 10, 11 months into being out on my own in my own business. And then, so 2019, that client actually came back and we ended up working on phase 3 with them. They're like, so do you have the capacity now? And I was like, yeah, I definitely do. I was able to pull in a team. And it was really amazing because one of the team members that I ended up meeting and pulling in is Rachel, who works with Anchored Training as the Director of Learning Experience Design now. And I was able to see her work and we were able to connect that way, and we've kept in touch ever since. And so it was at that point that I decided that, it was really time for me to be on social media, really, this is what I could have. I could have an instructional design business, a training company, really something for myself and create something bigger than myself. And I decided to move into 2020, working and living out loud. Famous last words, 2020. But I really got to the root of who I wanted to be and what I really enjoyed because of that. Because of the experiences that I had in 2019, subcontracting on my work and really figuring out some of these processes, bringing in other people to help me, I was really able to understand, like, damn, I want to be a fucking business owner. Like, this is me. This is who I've always been. I just didn't realize that. I just didn't realize it for whatever reason. For a lot of reasons, actually. We'll get into that in another video. But so my last tip for you all is to really understand the type of instructional designer that you want to be and what fulfills you. What types of projects fulfill you? What kind of clients, industries you want to be working in? Really understanding like what is going to make you happy. Doing these things, all these tips, really help to build that foundation for what you need to really figure out what type of education do I need? What do I need to go to get a certification? Do I need to go learn an authoring tool? Do I need to go, LLC? Do I need to figure out, business law in my state? All of these things really helps to narrow that down. It really just helps you understand who you are as an instructional designer, who you are as a person, and where you want to go and where you want to be. And if you do that, I would recommend coupling that with creating a vision board. So after you've done that self-work and figuring out, who you are as an instructional designer, where you want to go, that vision board is an excellent tool for you to help map it out so you can visualize and see like, okay, this is where I want to go. So now let me figure out how it is that I'm going to get there and start doing the things that you need in order to get there. It's really powerful for you to see the goals in front of your face and then figure out, okay, like this is what I need to do in order to get there, as opposed to not really writing down what you're doing and just kind of grasping at straws and grasping in midair. I'm an action plan person. I'm a person that like, this is my goal and these are the things I need to get there, because if not, I feel like I'm just floundering doing all the things without a real purpose. And that's what I found that works for me. So if you want to learn more about creating a vision board, I will link above the video that I did with Dr. Robin Sargent of Idle Courses about our vision boards and what's come true and what goes on our next vision board. So are you ready to get into instructional design? I've got the workshop series for you. So I am hosting the New Year New ID Skills workshop series. 4 workshops where we're going to be working together on helping you break into instructional design. And this is not how to do instructional design and your e-learning portfolio and learning articulate storyline. This is figuring out who you are. Week 1, we're going to talk about knowing your worth and the type of instructional designer that you want to be. And also do an audit of your skills and what you could be selling yourself as and what you might need to pick up some additional courses for. Week 2, we're going to be talking about building your brand and really who you are as an instructional designer and how you put yourself out there. Week 3, we're going to talk about your resume and your cover letter to make it stand out. I've been doing a lot of hiring lately, so I've got a lot of tips and tea for you. And then in week 4, we're going to talk all about interviewing and how you're going to wow the person on the other side of that table or the other side of that Zoom video. The link to the New Year New ID workshop series is down in my bio. Make sure you sign up because seats are selling out quickly. Friends, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video and in the New Year New ID Skills workshop series. Bye.